formidable robot.
Do not look for any copies of this game. It is only accessible to me, my family, and one of my friends, and the screenshot I have and the content covered might contain disturbing content. If you find any remaining copy of this game, report to Nintendo as soon as possible. I'm Stephen Thompson, a 9-to-5 worker, living in Florida with my brother. We are partners with Nintendo and make ideas for the company to see if they like it or not. We usually just take bootleg games and rework them into games suitable to Nintendo standards. These games we make usually never get released to the public eye until they were completely finished. But one slipped out, and was something we forbid anyone to play. One day while I was working in a gas station sushi place called Middle Work, I saw someone holding a Mario cartridge in their hands. They were walking out the door when I spotted the game in their hands. I just let them take the cartridge and moved on with my day. After I was done with my shift, I drove back home and realized was that cartridge the forbidden game we've been talking about? So I went to the person's place. The person seemed genderless and looked masculine and female. She was actually a woman who was just heading to the gym across my street and seemed like a very nice person. The woman introduced herself as Jenny, and I introduced myself. After we were done getting used to each other, I asked her about the game she bought. She seemed like she knew what I was talking about since she stood up and went to get the game. After I was done waiting, she came back with the game in her hand. She said this.
Is this the game you're talking about?
I said yes, and she gave me the cartridge. I took a look at the game and immediately knew what it was. Mario Prototype 2014. I immediately knew that this was one of the games that wasn't sold yet, and told the lady that she got a game that wasn't even to be in her hands. She was shocked, but understood that it needed to get back to Nintendo HQ. However, I had other plans. I requested that we played the game since I was an executive at Nintendo themselves, and called the company just in case me and Jenny were allowed to play. One of my bosses said,
"Why not? It might be suitable for a release."
Boy, I wish they said otherwise. We booted up the game, and all seemed normal. It looked like a remake of Super Mario Galaxy, with higher graphics, and was even able to be on PC, which was a pleasant surprise. The game started up weird, with some textures missing. What seemed weird though is that the missing textures were replaced by that one render of Mario in the dark, looking almost similar to his Nintendo 64 era model. We thought it was just a placeholder, so we moved on and it still seemed normal, at best. Terrence was completely normal, no placeholder textures, no nothing. It was a fully polished galaxy we managed to go through without issue, the enemies were fully functional, and the bosses weren't doing things they weren't supposed to. Overall it was normal for a little while. There were also new galaxies too, and also seemed normal. All of them had no bosses though, which was kinda disappointing. The next bunch of galaxies though were looking off. They looked and finished in a way. The galaxies had no lighting, no enemies, and even no NPCs. The textures were also jumbled up, with that damn shadowy Mario texture again. It was starting to get worrying, since this texture was appearing everywhere I looked. It seemed like it was following me wherever I went. But after I finished the bunch, something happened that I'll never forget. The texture was still everywhere, but now it was horrifyingly distorted with Mario's face obscured in shadow. He also had glowing eyes and glowing teeth, and his nose was the only thing coming out of the darkness. The observatory was overrun by enemies, if I even can call them that. The enemies were distorted beyond recognition, boos having ever elongating eyes and mouths. It was genuinely horrifying to see that happening, but there was more. Oh, so much more. Right where Rosalina usually is that Mario from the horrifying texture, complete with the teeth and eyes. The thing was holding Rosalina in its arms. She seemed lifeless, but was still breathing somehow. Rosalina slowly but surely reached out to Mario, then suddenly the thing bit into Rosalina's neck, killing her. A black substance poured out of her wound like blood, pouring onto the floor with a grotesque fashion. This sight made Mario fall onto the floor, crying hysterically. Then Mario slowly lifted his head, to reveal his new distorted face. It looked so broken, as if the textures for it were jumbled. It looked almost unreal. Me and Jenny couldn't even comprehend what was happening. Was this even happening? Am I in a dream? Is this even real? Me and Jenny sent the game back to the Nintendo HQ. We said we had a mishap, and we just hope that we don't see that damn game ever again. It scared the shit out of us, and we just hope that we never see that damn distorted texture again. The next day, me and Jenny were talking about the cursed game, discussing how horrible it was. The image of the ordinary shadowy Mario texture was burnt into our minds, and was one hell of a curveball. Suddenly I got a text from my co-worker, Vanessa. Vanessa tested the game out and went through the same stuff we went through. Luckily she was able to delete the horrific stuff. Except the one placeholder texture, like it was immovable. I asked if she deleted the cutscene of Rosalina dying. She replied with this.
When I saw the cutscene, something came into my backyard. It looked somewhat humanoid, so to speak. I don't know, but it looked like.
And then nothing after that, like she was cut off from sending the message. So me and Jenny went to Vanessa's house and found a horrific sight. The living room was messed up, like a wild bear came in and destroyed the place. There was a stench of dark black liquid staining the carpet and the couch, with what seemed to be blood. A putrid smell filled my nose as I traveled deeper in the home, as I could smell rotting flesh. The chairs were broken, the dark liquid was everywhere, as well as the blood. As I made my way to Vanessa's door, I could hear grotesque chewing sounds. Blood was leaking from under the door, as the smell grew worse. I opened the door slightly not to alert anything that was in the room. I peeked into the room, and what I saw. Oh God, Vanny. Something was eating her, looking like a disgruntled plumber. It looked like it was starving, and Vanessa's face. Oh God, her face. Her face looked like she was crying, her eyes were basically pulled from the sockets, and her jaw was basically mangled. Basically this, basically that. The thing that was eating her had sharp yellow teeth, and his eyes were also pulled out. His clothes looked tattered and ripped, and stab wounds were able to be seen on his back. I ran the hell out of there and told Jenny to get out as soon as possible, and we started a fire so we could put Vanessa's soul and that damn thing's miseries to rest, permanently. I can still vividly remember that thing is its face. Oh God, its face. Soon days would later pass by. Me and Jenny were dating at the time. While when we were together, we were watching the news. Eventually we saw some sort of hijacking occur, with the screen glitching until it showed a dark room. There was two lights, one to the far left, and one to the far right. To the middle, something was standing there, looking straight at the screen. Eventually, light gets shined on the thing before it cuts back to the news. But just before it cut back, I saw it. She saw it. It was the same exact plumber. The same pesky plumber that ate my co-worker.